Welcome to Feature Fridays. My name is Guy Bartram. I'm Director of Product Marketing for our cloud providers at VMware. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Varghese. Welcome, Varghese. Do you want to just introduce yourself and tell people who you are, what you do?
Thank you, Guy. Thank you for inviting me again. It's great to be back. I think it was literally exactly like a year back when we talked about the sustainability dashboards and virtualized operation at that time, now ARIA operation. So for introducing myself, my name is Varghese Philipose. I'm a principal TAM based out in Dubai, out of Dubai. I've been with VMware for close to 11 years now. So I'd been working, I'd been a TAM all through these 11 years, and then engaging with the customers on the field, and then virtualized operation, or now the ARIA operation, has always been I've always been working with that along with the product team and all. And in between, sustainability came up, and that's where we are here, right? So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you pioneered like the new sustainability dashboards, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Talk about the green scoring and what's underneath the hood as far as that's concerned. This is becoming something, we're pushing it more and more to our cloud providers because particularly in the EU, for example, there's some new legislation coming up into effect in January, whereby organizations of 150 million revenue, I think, are going to have to provide transparency and auditing on their scope 2, scope 3 emissions. So it's a great solution with ARIA operations. So it's a good time to dive into more detail, Varghese.
Yeah, exactly. So as and when this carbon reporting is becoming important, and our green score is going to be very, very, very important for a lot of organizations, and then the cloud providers as well, because a lot of these enterprise customers are moving into the cloud now, right? So they're reporting their scope 1, scope 2 reporting goes back into the cloud provider. So the cloud providers have to have some scoring mechanism, and that's where green score will help them.
Yeah, absolutely. This will give them at least the carbon reporting for all of the scope of the virtualized infrastructure. There's still the physical kind of attributes of the data center that they've got to somehow provide clarity and transparency on. But this is going to be a great way a cloud provider can provide clarity perhaps and transparency as a managed service. So give them a report every week or every month, but also provide this as a dashboard from Cloud Director if necessary, where or standalone obviously, but through the tenant app with that ability to publish dashboards to the tenant app and have that auto refreshed all the time, so customers have got their kind of latest view.
Correct.
All right.
Exactly.
Should we dive into some of the detail?
Yeah. Just going to share my screen with a few slides. We'll first initially go through a few slides, and then we can dive into a demo as well. Okay, so let's go into the details of what we have, right? So in sustainability within ARIA operations, a new story in here, right? So we'll first quickly look at what we had earlier, which we already discussed, and then how we had progressed that into the green score and ARIA operations. So now, all our innovations from the VMware product innovations into sustainability within VMware, we're focusing on like three sustainability goals. One is the carbon transparency, workload carbon efficiency, and zero carbon cloud. We know about ZCC certification for the partners where that is being worked on. And carbon transparency is what ARIA operations will help you with, right? So that's what we were discussing about the carbon reporting, right? Carbon reporting by the customers, by the organizations need to be done, and all of those things. That's where we are going to show into that, right? So let's go into the carbon transparency with ARIA operations now. I'll just quickly go where we started off with, right? So we consider there are 3 dimensions of sustainability within the data center: green supply, clean demand, and run. So green supply is nothing but like making sure that you have an optimized infrastructure. So that's where you get when someone asks for when the business asks for the resources, the workload or everything is being provided from a green environment, right? And optimized infrastructure. Now, the second thing, clean demand, is basically make sure that the business asks for the right resources, not wasting the resources like by taking the oversized VMs and then wastage of resources and all. And then third one, run lean. run with minimal overhead and buffer, so that without impacting SLA of operation, right? So
Yeah.
now, if you see on the right hand side, all these capabilities, right size, reclaim, all of this thing had been there, but then we had not been tying it back into the sustainability aspect of it. We had been doing this from day one when we had virtualization, consolidation, right sizing, all of those things we had been doing, but then we never tied it back into the sustainability. That's where last in 2021 we came out with the first release of sustainability dashboard. So basically focusing on three areas. How much did you save by virtualizing? How much carbon emission did you save by virtualizing? Then further, how can you optimize? And then also helping to identify the greenest cluster to provision the next workflow. So this was, I would say, version 1.0, and now I'd say this is an old story, right? So a lot of customers started adopting this, and we have got so much of feedback on what they need, right? So, and again, sustainability has always been a new story in the markets in the last, which has progressed over, like, developed over last 10 years, I would say, from power savings to carbon savings, and then that's the sustainability, right? So it's completely dynamic. A lot of things have come in, right? So based on whatever we received from the field from that sustainability dashboards, we built or we enhanced that part within the ARIA Operations Cloud in the last October release, where we came out with something called Green Score. Why? Because of the feedback we received and what all things customers wanted. Now, one of the things customers mainly wanted was, what is my current carbon footprint, right? What is my current carbon footprint? And also track the carbon emissions reduction, because you cannot improve on something which you cannot measure, right? So that's the first and foremost thing. So, and there were no industry standards or a global measuring mechanism where a customer or an organization can compare to where they are in that journey, right? Decarbonization journey. It was just like blindly going on a road with no speed tracking or something like that, right? So that's where we came out with this green score within the data center, where we could talk about, like, we calculate this green score and give the customers the ability to understand where they are, and then also give them the actionable recommendations. So that's where you can actually tell them that you are in this score and you have the scope of improving further and reaching up to that value, right? So that's where I would say the second generation of sustainability story within ARIA Operations came in. Now, let's go into how this is calculated, right? So I mentioned about the three sustainability pillars: clean demand, lean operation, and green supply. We are going same with that itself, but then added more components into that. For example, in clean demand, of course, it's the workload efficiency. How do you remove the wastage and then go on with that, right? That is there. That is one of the key components. Now, in the lean operations, we talked about, like, virtualization is definitely a key component, right? So virtualization is a key driver for improving the sustainability, because it helps in consolidation of the data center, be it compute, storage, or network, whatever it is, right? So that is one thing. So we added virtualization ratio in there, and then resources utilization, like reducing those buffers, wastage, and all of those things, making sure that the resources are rightly utilized without wasting, right? That was the two pillars, two components we added into the lean operation. Now, into the green supply, we added power source, because this is one of the most important components of driving green operations, right? Because it depends on what kind of power source you are in, right? Renewable, non-renewable, all of those things. So we added that, and then also the hardware efficiency. Hardware efficiency is basically based on the fact that the latest generation hardware are more energy efficient. So we took that also into consideration. So we are talking about these 5 components, right? So that's where the how we created and built this green score, VMware green score. So each of these components have different levels of impact on a green score or your green operation. So that's where we have given weighted average across these components. For example, power source is always a very important thing, right? That has a big impact on the overall green operation. So that's where we have given the power source at 37.5% weighted average, and then workload efficiency as well, because that is something which you can improve on. You get to see the wastage in your environment, and then how you can improve on that, right? And then, of course, resource utilization, virtualization, and hardware efficiency have its own weighted average. So based on these, each of these components will have a score, and then based on that, we create a weighted average, and that's where green score is all up to. So it is a, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, just a couple of questions about this. So when you're talking about power source, obviously, how does area operations know whether this is coming from, whether the data center is being fed by renewable energy contracts or normal off the grid kind of electricity purchased?
Okay, so in the current version, what we are doing is we are asking the inputs from the customers. We have few inputs, which I will come into the points, each of those.
Okay.
So we will ask the customers to configure a few things. First, the virtualization ratio at this point, because we don't know, we cannot convert that, identify that straight away from area operations. Then power source, and then also for the hardware efficiency, we are asking the input, what is the age of your hardware? Based on that, we calculate, right? And for power source, once the customers can input what is the power source driving their data center, what kind of power source. So they don't need to know what is the carbon efficiency or something, carbon intensity or something, but then just select the carbon power source, and then based on that, it will be added into. I'll come into that because we have slides for each of those 5 components and then. So what I'm saying is, like, it is a green score is from a relative scoring, right? It is not an absolute value. It's a relative scoring from 0 to 100%. And your goal should be always to push towards 100. Practically 100, value of 100 is not possible just because of few things, right? Like resource utilization, you cannot get to 100% because you always need some HA values, buffer values, all of those things, right? And also with the other thing, but then the push is to get to the maximum value possible, and also track where you are from a previous time onto going further onto going with that. Okay, so let's go into details of each of these 5 components to make it more clear, right? So 5 components. The first one, workload efficiency. So it measures the wastage in your data center. So it looks at the idle VM, powered off VM, oversized VM, unused VM, so many things, right? So, and then it calculates a scoring based on the total non-wastage in your environment against the wastage plus non-wastage. So if you have 100% wastage, you will have a workload efficiency score of 0. And then 0 wastage means you have 100. So this is how it is calculated within area operation, because we already have those mechanisms in area operation to identify the wastage in your environment, right? So this is workload efficiency, component number 1. The second one is the resource utilization. This is a bit this is not in, we are not looking at the capacity assets as a pillar, but then an example would be basically when the hardware owners within an organization procure the hardware, they will always keep a buffer to make sure that they never run out of capacity on peak times, right? And then when it comes into the VM owners, application owners, they also keep their buffers to make sure that they don't run. So these buffers stack up, right? Stacks up the buffer, and then that is again a wastage. So what we are trying to show here is the utilization from the absolute capacity. And then, of course, there will be, we can tell that this much is over buffer, the buffers of multiple times, so which you can reduce and then doing with that. So this in turn helps in reducing the power consumption and all of those things, right? So that's where this resource utilization comes into picture. So again, 0% usage is a value of 0, and 100% usage is a bad score of 100. Now, 0 and 100 are definitely not possible. So we are talking about a value in between. That's why I keep telling, right? This is a relative scoring which helps in tracking the things, right? So, and again, it looks into the server storage network, and then based on that, it gives you the makes a score around that. So now the third component, virtualization ratio. This is something which I have mentioned, right? So at this point of time, we cannot calculate, or ARIA operations cannot go over and then identify this virtualization ratio. So we ask the customers to configure this. What is your virtualization ratio? So this won't come into picture when you are working when you are looking at a 100% public cloud or 100% cloud infrastructure. So that's going to be 100, right? So because it's everything is virtualized. Cloud means everything is virtualized. So we are talking about server virtualization, storage virtualization, network and desktop virtualization. Based on that, it creates a score as well. Again, each of those virtualization components have weighted average. They are not equally giving the same point of value to the batch score of this virtualization.
So if I was using like physical IDS, IPS devices, for example, here, I would be putting in like the, I guess the network virtualization would be lower as a proportion compared to the rest.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So again, these are the inputs which are needed by the customer. So you have to give what is your percentage of virtualization of server, network, storage, and desktop.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, the score differs from varies from 0 to 100% based on the whatever rating what you will give.
Yeah.
Now looking at the power source, this is one of the most important things in here, right? So now, how do you calculate the relative scoring on power source, right? So if you look at that chart, right, so you will see the different sources of power, lignite, coal, oil, and then you will see a value that is the carbon intensity per power source. So we are relying on the greenhouse gas emissions calculator, which is an industry standard across for all of those things. So this is an average value across the globe. We are not talking about regional wise, or because in Europe, a lot of countries have the same power source will have the lower carbon intensity as compared to the other parts of the world. But then at this point of time, we are taking a global average for each power source, okay, which you can change, which you can customize cluster wise later on by the customers if they want. But then what you are doing is once you select, you might have multiple data centers powered by different kind of power sources, right? So you can actually put in what percentage of your power source is coal, what percentage of your power source is nuclear. So it gives that percentage value. Customers input that, and based on that, ARIA Ops will calculate the score for the power source. But then this is how it is. It's again from 0 to 100%. Zero carbon intensity means 100%, which is theoretically not achievable. But then if you have the power source of lignite, then we will give a 0% score on that. So this is how it is calculated. Right?
Yeah.
Now the fifth component is the hardware efficiency, which is basically it's a bit tricky as well. Like what we are working on the fact that the latest generation hardware are more energy efficient, right? So we take about we ask the customers what is the age of your hardware, storage, server, network, and desktop, and then based on that we create a score, right? So now this is purely on the scope 2 emissions, right? When we get the challenge, we get challenged on this component that if you want to procure new hardware, definitely there is other carbon emission, right? Scope 3 emission through the supply chain, manufacturing of server, shipment costs, all of those things will create another scope 3 emissions, right? So that's adding on to that. But then we are looking at scope 2 emissions in the data center, so we stick on with this. Again, we are just giving very minimal impact with this. 12.5% is the weighted average of hardware efficiency, and again, it varies from 0 to 100%. Right.
So from a service provider's perspective, then, if you've got a cluster which is all the same hardware, this would be quite easy to kind of put it in on a per cluster level. Yes. Does it account for clusters with? I don't suppose it does, with differing hardware types in.
So at this point, I would say this is the release 1.0 of the green score. We are showing the green score at the VCF world object level only. We are not giving the drill down till the cluster level, but then so the hardware version, age, you will give an average value across your data center. You look at what is your thing? This is at this point of time, like this is, you can take this as the version 1.2 of the green score. So when the drill down comes in, then you will have this capability of putting in per cluster level, what is the age? And even if it is different years, you can add in there, like an average value across a cluster, you can put in there and accordingly you can calculate.
Okay, cool.
Now, using these 5 components, right? So we come up with the green score and then also the actionable recommendation, because each of those 5 components have the score values, right? So accordingly, the customers can look at where should I focus on, right? Which score is bad and where should I focus on to improve my green score? So this is how actually you can literally automate this as well. Now since we have the green metrics, you can actually automate the actions with ARIA operations to make sure that you look at if the green score goes below this, go and do the action of either reclaiming the wastage or giving the recommendation of power source, all of those things, right? You can get in with that. As you can see here, right? So sustainability is right in the homepage, and you will see the new page here, right? So sustainability green score. So since it's a new concept, what we have done is we have given the detailed information here on how green score is calculated, right? What we mentioned, what we talked about, right? So 5 components, what are the weighted averages and how it is calculated, all of those things are mentioned here. So anyone can have a review of the same thing. Right? Now, if you see here, green score, now here you can see it here as 45%, right? So it is not bad, it is not good. Like it is about like relative scoring where you are tracking, right? So now based on this, like I can see the green score over a period of time, weekly, monthly, or yearly. So this is where it becomes important, right? You will get to see where you are going and then and also you can see the power consumption of the entire environment, power consumption per month. This is 9 megawatt hour per month. And you can also see the trend over a period of time, weekly, monthly, and yearly as well. This was one of the asks, a lot of asks from customers where from our earlier dashboards, we are not showing the, we were showing the values every 5 minutes, right? The energy value, carbon footprint. So we have cumulative values, what makes useful for the customer. So that's where we came up with this itself, right? So power consumption, and then same thing on the carbon footprint, right? We can track it over a period of time, how it was, and this value is per month. Last 30 days, how much is your carbon footprint? And just to give a relative scoring, we have used this much carbon footprint, which is 6 tons of carbon footprint, is basically carbon emission is equivalent to the carbon emissions by 779,000 smartphones charged, the carbon emission. It is just a comparison to show how it is, right? So now, if you go down further, you will see all these 5 components. That's where it gets interesting, right? So you see the workload efficiency here, it is 68%, and you have the opportunity to improve that from you have powered off VM where you can clean up the storage, idle VMs, oversized VM, then there are snapshots, orphan disk, and you have the dashboards. You have the link to the dashboard from where you can get the details of each of these reclaimed resources and right source resources. So that's where we are helping customers to do their actions as well from there. Now the lean operations, you have the utilization, resource utilization, and then you will get to see the dashboards here from where they can get the more details. Underused storage, oversized clusters, all of those things comes under the lean operation. And then the virtualization ratio, which the inputs, which I will show in a moment where we give that inputs, right? And then
just from a Varghese, just from a service provider perspective, we'll have multiple customers on a cluster, whether it's a managed or unmanaged cloud environment. It will is that going to give, or can that be limited so it only shows the customer itself?
Okay, so as I mentioned, in this release, green score is from the vSphere world object level, which is
right.
we cannot drill down currently. So that is in the roadmap, and that is coming up in an upcoming release. And that's where it becomes very, very powerful. Like you will have the green score, not just on the cluster level, but then it can go down into the VM level as well. What is the green score of the VM? All of those things. That's in the roadmap, and that should be coming up in an upcoming release.
So I guess for now, cloud providers just could modify this dashboard and remove certain components from it.
Yeah. So green score will be available for the entire infrastructure, but then again, the sustainability metrics are available at the cluster level. So that's what the cloud providers can use with the customers currently. Each of those customers, we can show what is their carbon footprint, how much did they save, all of those things we can show. The green score as such, the concept will be available for all the entire infrastructure.
Okay.
Right. So, and these recommendation, you will get the recommendation on changing to blue power source switch to the green energy sources, all of those things. So you will get the options there. Now I'll show you the inputs what are needed here. So you can, at any point of time, you can change that. First time users, you will get the option to change this. You can see here, give the organization name, and then what is the green, the first virtualization ratio, compute storage network. So this is up to customer to add their value. And then the power source. This was what I was mentioning. So default, we have put in two values here, which you can change. You can just select what is your power source for the data center. And I can put what percentage of the thing is being used, all of those things, and it automatically calculates up. Okay. Yeah. And then average age of hardware. So as of today, so you give this and then it automatically calculates later on how that score comes in. So these are the only inputs which customer needs to provide, and which takes us to the green score.
So this is going to be, if it's a RIA cloud orientated, then this can be particularly useful for service providers who are running, SDDCs for customers in VMC, Google, AVS, etc., right?
Yes. So wherever VMware cloud, we get all those metrics because we just need the power metric. That's it. If we are able to expose the power metrics through ESXi, that's it. That's all we will need, and we will calculate based on that.
And I think that's a big advantage over native hyperscale as well, because with VMware cloud instances in in Google, etc., you've got a lot more kind of likelihood of understanding where you're actually running the workloads versus native public cloud where they don't disclose where that workload is running.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the green score, where it's not just about showing where they are, but also give them give everyone actionable recommendation for improving their green score. So that's where this all stories can say.